Hello there, welcome back. My name is Juno Dawson. This is Zoella Friends Book Club with W.H. Smith, and today I'm once again joined by Adam Silvera, here to talk to us about History is All You Left Me. Hello, Adam.
Hello.
So, History is All You Left Me. It's the story of poor, sweet, bereaved Griffin who has lost the love of his life, Theo, in a horrible accident. However, that's not the end of Theo, is it?
No.
How do you go about introducing us to Theo? Even though he's dead, he's not a ghost. I stress it's not that kind of story.
No, definitely not a ghost story. So I mean, the book is also divided into two sections. We have the Today section where we get to explore Griffin, grieving Theo. We know from page one that Theo has recently tragically drowned 1 week prior to the book's beginning, and it kicks off with Griffin on his way to Theo's funeral in New York City. But then we also go back in time a bit with the history section where we get to see Griffin and Theo coming out to each other for the first time when they were in 14, 15. And so I mean, like, that wasn't originally the way I intended to write the story. Like, I probably wrote about 30,000 words before, all in the Today section, before I realized, wow, this book is really sad. Like, it's just like Griffin grieving the entire time, and I shared it with my best friend, and he was sort of like, I really love it. It's just so much grief, and I want to figure out a way to sort of organically break that up, because I didn't want Griffin to just now start cracking jokes and being sarcastic to sort of make the reader feel more comfortable. Like, it's grief. You should be uncomfortable. I started thinking back to some of my other favorite books, and I was like, oh, maybe I could do like a non-linear thing, and it just made so much sense. Like, it's in the title, like history, and what better way to actually learn their history than to experience it yourself. So you get to see Griffin and Theo falling in love for the first time, having all these wonderful firsts, and the two storylines eventually connect very much toward the end, and you get to experience their breakup as well, and you get to experience how Griffin is feeling when Theo meets a new boy, sort of deal. And the books, the two sections, like, they're definitely bridged, especially right at the end, which I'm really excited about.
Now, Griffin is quite a complicated character. I personally found Griffin to have one of the most realistic representations of mental illness I've seen in a young adult novel, and I know that's something a lot of readers have been in touch with me about, and I've seen on Twitter that YA readers very much champion representation of mental health in YA fiction. So can you tell us a bit more about Griffin and his OCD?
Yeah, so Griffin has these compulsions. He has to be on everyone's left, whether it's walking or sitting, and he kind of thinks in even numbers and feels most at ease when things are done in evens, with a few exceptions on the odd scale, like 1 and 7 and 11 and any number that ends in 7, because he was born on the 17th, so he's like cool with 7, and 7 just happens to be a really pure number. But beyond that, like, an odd number can make him like really anxious, sort of deal. And Griffin's OCDs are 100% identical to my own, and it's not something that I intended to write about. Like, I was just sort of slipping into Griffin's voice, and I found that he was counting things the way that I do, and shifting out of someone's right to be on their left and everything, for a reason that he really couldn't put to words. And I realized, like, literally, when I finished completing this book, it had been 10 years since I started recognizing my own compulsions, and I've never been, I've never sought out like professional help or whatever, and that was something that was actually really important for me to write into the book, because I think too often in stories revolving around mental illness, therapy tends to be villainized, and I wanted to show a positive side of it, knowing that it has saved so many of my own friends' lives, and I wanted that on the page, especially for any teenagers who are sort of struggling themselves mentally. And it's not a book about OCD. It's OCD is just part of who Griffin is, and I think that that's really important, because I think far too often we have books about mental illness and we say, oh, it's only about this one thing, like, it's not about anything else, like, it's just about the OCD, and that's all it has going for it. But meanwhile, I can talk about this book for an hour, 2 hours, without even bringing up Griffin's OCD, and I think that that's the way that we need to sort of that authors need to start organically, like, weaving in these sort of textured details like this.
Do you think putting your compulsions in the book has sort of helped you in any way as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I almost went through this maddening process for this book where I wanted everything in the book to be even. I wanted even even letters per sentence, even paragraphs per page, even chapters, even pages. Like, I was about to go down a major rabbit hole before I recognized, no, this is like not something I should be doing. Like, and you know, when I first was, you know, experiencing these compulsions, I was treating them as quirks, and I was letting other people treat them as quirks, and like people would try to walk on my left to like, you know, get me to like walk into the street or whatever because they thought it was funny sort of
nice.
deal. And I myself am guilty of, you know, kind of playing into that myself. Like I would go on dates and talk up my quirky side, you know, while not actually recognizing that these compulsions can be harmful to myself, you know, and so that took me quite some time. But you know, again, like I'd never seen OCD explored in books, and I'd only seen one instance of it explored in movies. You know, it was just always like, oh, there's this character who has to check the oven twice or check the door, and you know, there are people who absolutely experience that compulsion, but I didn't realize that it can be independent to each person, and so that's been really helpful for me. And I've heard from so many teens already who have been so grateful to see OCD on the page, and just in terms of feeling seen and learning a bit more about themselves.
So the last time we met, we went on tour together
We did.
around New York and New Jersey and Connecticut and some other places. That was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, 2015.
I was quite different back then, I'm not going to lie. I did have a beard. But which other authors, or why would it have to be authors? Which other authors inspire you, and who do you admire and why?
Yeah, so I mean, Becky Albertalli, who wrote Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, she's one of my favorite authors, and that book, Simon versus, it's the book that every time I read it, and I've read it about 3 or 4 times now, I'm like, this is the book I would have wanted when I was 16. And it's kind of amazing that it's also written by a heterosexual woman as well, you know, and that she nailed the voice and spirit of this gay teen boy so well that like she has me and so many other teens who are like so grateful for its existence, you know. And I'm a big Patrick Ness fan. I'm actually listening to The Rest of Us Just Live Here on audiobook right now, and it's really cool, and I'm excited for his new book release. And David Arnold, Nicola Yoon. I read a lot of fantasy as well, like Sabaa Tahir and Renee Athier, and just so many authors. I mean, I'm constantly inspired by just the spirit and that these authors put into their books. Like, I mean, everyone's just like sweating and bleeding to make their books like everything they want it to be, and they're not just like cranking them out for the sake of like collecting a paycheck, you know. Like they care about their characters, they care about their readers, and I feel very lucky to be able to turn to them during the times where writing is like especially hard, to have them to remind me that this is all just part of it, and we will get it out there, and then eventually we will be talking about these books on Zoella's Book Club.
Yay.
So.
And you might have seen that between Adam and I, there is this orange book. Adam, tell us about this. What is this? What is happening here?
So this is my next book. It's called They Both Die at the End, and it publishes in September. And it's speculative, so it has a little bit of a sci-fi kick to it. And it's set in a world where Deathcast calls you on the day you're going to die. So it's sort of like, hey, Juno, this is Adam calling from Deathcast. Unfortunately, sometime in the next 24 hours, you'll be meeting an untimely death. We cannot tell you how you're going to die, what time you're going to die, just that today's the day and we're never wrong. Okay, bye. And
that would kind of be amazing, though.
Yeah.
Because you could get things sorted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's its intent. And so it's about these 2 boys who meet through the Last Friend app, Mateo and Rufus, who are seeking out a friend on their end day for their own respective reasons, and they attempt to live a lifetime within a single day. I'm really excited about this book. I've been working on it for 5 years, and it'll finally be out in September.
So do get hold of History Is All You Left Me. Do put They Both Die at the End on your wish list. And thank you so much for tuning in. Check out all of Zoella and Friends' recommendations, and we'll both see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.